Hello and welcome to World Talks on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. Global energy markets are under strain as tensions escalate in the Strait of Hormuz, and Washington controversially eases restrictions on Russian oil. Joining us is Brent Sadler, Senior Research Fellow at the Heritage Foundation, to assess the geopolitical and security implications. Brent, welcome back. TVP World.
Hi, thank you, and good evening.
Good evening to you. Right, so I'm terribly confused. Are the straits open or are they not? All sorts of mixed messaging going on. What's the latest you've heard?
I apply the Schrodinger theorem to this. It's both open and closed. It really matters the confidence. It's never really been physically challenged in a meaningful way, because the first week of this conflict between Israel, U.S., and Iran, the Iranian Navy, their Air Force, whatever was left of it, and its ballistic missile, cruise missile, drone forces had been severely degraded to not really pose much of a significant threat to the shipping. But it doesn't matter if there isn't confidence in the underwriters, because the price of insurance went through the roof, and it had the effective, deleterious impact on shipping. Those rates are coming down, and hopefully, today's trio of attacks hopefully don't cause that to slip back to higher levels, because that's actually more of a threat than Iranian munitions.
Indeed, but perceptions are shaped by the reality on the ground, or in the water, if you like, in this particular case. What is going on? I mean, we understand that the Iranian ports are being blockaded. We understand that certain ships have been fired upon by the Iranians. Surely, if we can open the straits up enough to get some regular flow through, all those insurance premiums will naturally decline, won't they?
Well, I think you're already seeing that. It was a high of 3% when the normal rate the day before this conflict was about 0.15 to 0.25%. It's the value of the ship. Now it's about 0.8. This is a gross average across several classes of ships. So it's coming down, and it is perceptions. And the reality, quite frankly, is very different than if you simply looked at what the risk assessors are making right now. The other important thing to note is the day before this conflict, the shipping was averaging about 100 ships crossing in and out daily in the Straits of Hormuz. But now with the east-west pipeline going to Yanbu and the Red Sea, at least Saudi and UAE crude oil, about a third of that now can go through the Red Sea and avoid the Straits of Hormuz. So I think whenever we get back to a normal, it's not going to be what the normal was February 26th or 27th. It's going to be a lower number, about 70, 68, so many ships in the future. That should lessen Iran's ability to blackmail the world's shipping markets.
Right. Well, I was going to move on to that, actually. Are we expecting a strategic shift in the way that oil is moved around? But what about non-oil products? Because they go through the straits as well, don't they?
Yes, LNG is perhaps the most problematic because there aren't enough options. Qatar is perhaps the largest of the LNG shippers or producers in the Gulf. And for a host of reasons, many of them political and diplomatic between its neighbors, there isn't a pipeline connection to short-circuit the Straits of Hormuz to tap into. UAE has a pipeline that does go to just Fujairah in the Arabian Sea, but that's still very close, a little uncomfortably close to Iran when it comes out the other side of the Persian Gulf. But LNG, there is a huge threat there. Specifically, it's our East Asian partners and economies that rely on that export more than European markets.
OK, now, President Trump has said that talks are going well, but he refuses to be blackmailed by Iran. What does he mean there?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's several things. No one really knows exactly because he hasn't detailed it, but there's several very clear forces at play. The Iranians, when you listen to and the leaking of their 10-point plan before the the negotiations last week, it's very clear that they are trying a very familiar pattern of trying to pander or to sow discord with Trump's political foes here in Washington, D.C., and allies in, say, in Europe and Asia, to try to apply pressure on President Trump to make a favorable decision for Tehran. It doesn't work. It has never worked with this president. In fact, it's more likely to blow up on their intentions. So that's one. The other part of the blackmail, of course, is Iran's threat to control or just to threat shipping into the Straits of Hormuz, causing the oil prices to spike up at their. I think those two things together is inside of President Trump's mind when he says he's not going to be black. One, a direct impact to how the negotiations between the two countries unfold. The other, global energy markets.
Understood. Now, as these negotiations are going on, the question must be asked, who is representing the Iranian side?
Good question. I mean, we had a very large delegation of 70 members. The speaker of their parliament equivalent came, but it's on how unified this government and how the power dynamics are playing out inside Tehran. I mentioned earlier, there were 3 attacks today on shipping that seemed to be out of alignment with what was agreed to in the back channel negotiations for a second round of I guess, negotiations in Pakistan. So it seems there may be elements, there may be some factions that don't necessarily see it the same way as the group that's engaging D.C. in negotiations at the same time.
Okay, now moving on to the spike in oil prices. Another thing that President Trump has done is he's extended his waiver on sanctions in the transportation of Russian oil on the sea. What's the logic behind that?
Well, there's a couple of things to consider. One, European partner countries rely more on energy, and they have a dogged reliance still on Russian oil that was going in the right direction towards the end of last year. But what you've seen right now with this, I guess, waiver is India. India is the one that's been the most directly impacted by the conflict in the Persian Gulf, other than our Asian treaty allies like Japan and South Korea. So India's import of Russian petroleum is spiked back up to where it's the largest other after China purchaser of Russian petroleum. It had drifted down to like the 3rd spot and was actually co-equal with the EU. So I think India, to try to allow them to continue to meet their energy needs, as well as to keep European countries, I guess, in adequate energy supplies. But again, I don't see these waivers lasting much longer. There was one that was extended that was announced on Friday here in D.C. But the other part of this to consider is the Pentagon is moving towards a global clampdown on the dark fleet, to which China and many others rely on getting cheap, sanctioned oil. And they also get most of that from Iran. So this could also be the preliminaries to set the context so that the sting doesn't hurt as much our allies and partners when those operations go into effect.
Understood. Now, of course, the other aspect of this waiver is that it's refilling Russia's war chest, allowing it to extend, perhaps, its war in Ukraine. Is there a balance to be drawn here? I mean, perhaps through the provision of more weaponry to Ukraine?
It's an open question. There's not much because of decisions and mistakes made in the last administration and the foot dragging on getting quantities of the type of munitions that would have probably stopped the war earlier. But now, unfortunately, it's in a slog, and it's been in this attritional warfare for the last year and a half, 2 years plus. There's very little left in the arsenal to kind of tip or to deter Putin or to change the dynamics on the battlefield, sadly. But clearly, Europe has a dog in this fight and would not be surprised if there's more weaponry, more resources that are sent to Ukraine. Again, the mechanism for that is Ukraine, European countries pay for U.S. munitions. Munitions are sent to Ukraine. But we do have an industrial problem that should also be addressed, and that is there's just not enough industrial capacity in Europe and in the United States to meet the needs for Ukraine at the same time.
Okay, now just a general question on waiving the impact of sanctions, and that is specifically, is it undermining the power of sanctions in the future? I mean, it is conceivable that certain parties could maneuver in such a way that any future sanctions are also waived. This is a precedent, perhaps not such a good one. What do you think?
Well, it's a sad precedent that predates this administration as well. And many of our allies and partners are also just as guilty of this. So what would be the best? And it's still, I think, the best one is just, again, it's an industrial limitation. Again, bad decisions made not to expand key petroleum production and shipping infrastructure themselves. Is it'd be far better to buy excess capacity of petroleum products to include LNG from the United States. And you're seeing that the longer the disruption of the Persian Gulf, there are already large numbers of tankers heading to the United States to at least continue to move energy and to sell it on the open market, to continue to make a profit. So hopefully Europe moves away from its Russian energy and shifts those requirements to being met in the United States.
Brent Sadler, as always, thank you very much for sharing your analysis with our audience. Have a good day.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of this episode of World Talks. As always, lots more coming up, so don't go away. Goodbye.